come from? What is our prime directive?
Along the coach roads I did ride.
And do people care that we've got a group of social engineers in control directing human development? That's a fact. That's going on. Bill Gates is putting billions into a program. Here it is off a major university site for genetically engineered humans. These are the debates that are happening. And I know your preacher just says, oh, it's the end of the world, don't worry about it. We're going to discuss it here. So powerful info coming up in the final two segments. Dan Feidt, I'm going to get you back up for a full hour on the weekday show that's noon to 3 p.m. Eastern. But we've got about 10 minutes right now in this segment. We got a bunch of documents for people watching on prisonplanet.tv. Radio listeners can go there tomorrow. We'll have the video of this radio interview posted so people can see it. But you've got the floor. Finish your points about this quickening, this acceleration as the iceberg of shadow government emerges to the surface.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall the trend that I've seen accelerating is that, essentially the war has been kind of coming back home. Military contractor technology is now being resold using, Homeland Security as the big label for it. And there's a structure of grant programs that everybody should check out. The something called the Department of Justice Bureau of Justice Assistance assigns a ton of grants. And then that's like one of the major funding sources because local governments can't really afford a lot of this silly police state technology, like the big truck that Berkeley got, for example. I believe that came through something called the Department of Homeland Security Urban Areas Security Initiative, or UASI. That's another major one. We see states like Oklahoma, for example, getting really big into drone use. I was just looking, I think the domain is usa-ok.org. It's like an unmanned aerial vehicle like promotion association or something. So they're just trying to build out this thing as quickly as they can, not just in the United States, but all over the world. It's privatized, and the invasion of everybody's privacy is privatized. The coercion of people, whether it's private prisons or privatized, ankle bracelets and stuff. All of these
buy
different
our politicians
things.
And then force us to, and you keep calling it trucks. These are giant armored mega tanks out of a science fiction movie with weapons all over them.
The ICE Homeland Security Investigations Department is getting these enormous trucks as well. And another thing, the last thing I was mentioning, there's a couple of good wikis out there that I really think are really good. One of them is the Echelon 2 wiki with Barrett Brown and the kind of anonymous researcher people. The other one is called Telecomics with an X, BSRE. And they're doing sort of compiling all of these different communications and surveillance technologies that are, used in countries like Libya and Syria, so that big Western contractors, install police state technology in smaller cities to create what I think an expert said to James Bamford was the turnkey totalitarian state. And that's exactly what's happening. I think Glenn Greenwald said it well recently that in order to organize against, powerful and unfair, groups and figures, people need to be able to organize in privacy. And that's essentially what's been taken away from us and then now commodified in a Big Brother system. And so the document that sort of started this discussion, the Civil Disturbance Operations military police planning document from April 2006 that was used at the U.S. Army Military Police School in Fort McClellan, Alabama. That document, from the 2006 era, is very reflective of the behavior that the military had during Hurricane Katrina, confiscating firearms, contravening the Fourth Amendment against warrantless searches, which is exactly what this document...
that was the training. That was the training.
Right. Exactly. They were trained to behave this way, and so that's what you got. It wasn't a full, quote-unquote martial law situation, but whenever there's an escalation in these things, it's really important to have an understanding of these documents and kind of get a handle on them. One other thing I want to mention, an old story from the Republican National Convention in the Twin Cities was... I heard from multiple people there was something about text messages being tracked and some kind of display that they saw in police cars that...
No, that's confirmed. They've had that for about a decade, England admits they track everybody's text messages.
Right. But we want to try to figure out, how exactly this happens. And likewise, people had their houses searched on the basis of what seemed to be package tracking data.
Let me tell you, they have hubs at all the telecoms since the 96 Telecommunications Act illegally running everything through it.
Right, right. And so I think if we can kind of start to identify like the data APIs and like where these different departments are kind of running this data through, it's not that hard to realize that what are called application program interfaces have been put into things like, you know, UPS and FedEx. And so when a national special security event comes to town, they forget about the Fourth Amendment. If you try to file a lawsuit in federal court, I know for a fact, because my friends tried, that the federal judge will not even read your entire filing before he throws it out. Like that is a fact. And there's just I don't know how you force a federal judge to even read your filings if they're not going to read them. But that's how they operate.
No, we've been captured by foreign corporate interests. There's no doubt.
At the mass arrest down by the river during the RNC, that judge did not even read the full filing. But I just want to also throw in, a friend of mine sent me a document called the Federal Interagency Geospatial Concept of Operations, or GeoConops, of Department of Homeland Security. It's version 2.0, July 2010. And I haven't even had the full time to read this thing, but it's got a lot of details about how these different agencies, the military and stuff, kind of operate. On page 10 of it, there's just one of the craziest diagrams I've ever seen of kind of showing how geographic data moves back and forth. It gets to something called the National Incident Management System, which is kind of the main sort of structure that FEMA runs to control incidents.
Listen, 12 years ago, I was at Marine Corps operations in Oakland, and they let us in to tents with projections with all the police, with everybody's individual tracker phone where they could go in. Everything was satellite watched. They had drones. And I had Marines come to my office a month after and say, we're listeners. We want you to watch this. And they had drones watching us while we were there covering it. They used us knowing we were going as an enemy simulant. Right. So I was part of the exercise. That's how good their intel was, that I thought I was there getting all this, and they had drones watching me.
Yeah, and I think the New York Times just published a story about reporters in a domestic drone army training facility, and the drones were following cars driving around near the base. So
yeah, that's New York Times.
Yeah, and you know, I went to Washington. I think in December. It was cool. I actually got to go to an NDAA protest in the driving rain in front of the White House, and that was kind of a classic moment. But I saw drones flying around on the National Mall, sort of around above the protests and stuff, and they look a little weird because they aren't really moving at the normal speed, and they're usually pretty quiet. But the thing to look for is that they have little red tail lights, because I think the FAA still imposes those rules. They just don't have a white strobe on the bottom, but you can still spot them by the red tail light. And I've heard that people saw them at Occupy protests on the West Coast as well.
Yeah, the drone following us, and I was only shown the tape, and the Marines left, and it was us getting out of our hotel, walking and going to the thing where they were going, Death Star 708, Death Star, we've got them. And it was, we went to the restaurant at 8 in the morning, we're at the Denny's, we go to the thing, and there are the Marines totally illegally following us, showing, and then quote, they were friends coming to show me. I never knew if it was intimidation or if the Marines out of uniform were actually listeners, but they showed up at, this is like 12 years ago or 10 years ago, at Access TV to show me this. It's amazing. Great job, bro. We're going to talk to you for a full hour this week. Colonel Craig Roberts of Army Intelligence, retired, is going to join us this week. He wants to talk about this. He's going to expose Operation Black Star. We're going to set you up, Dan Feidt. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Look forward to having you back on later in the week. HongPong.com. I'm Alex Jones of Infowars.com. Our big report coming up on the destiny of humanity straight ahead. Tell your friends to tune in.
You've heard Alex.
The mysteries of the universe, the age-old questions. Where did humankind come from? What is our ultimate destiny? The answers to these fundamental questions are hiding in plain view. We came from the universe. We came from all that is creation. We are part of the universe. We come out of this creation. The answer. The question of our existence is wonderment. The planet Earth is home to our species, orbiting a standard sun, 2/3 of the way out on the spiral arm of the Milky Way galaxy.
Here you see a super galaxy, a cluster of galaxies. Each one of these a galaxy on its own. Hundreds of millions photographed by Hubble. And Hubble isn't even getting out of our backyard.
We are in the middle of wonderment, the middle of incredible creation. Humanity has not even dreamed or the mind imagined the potential of our species. People say they want to travel to space as if it's some distant place when we are part of the universe, living on an incredibly rich and gorgeous planet in the middle of a universe with hundreds and hundreds of billions of photographed galaxies, themselves containing hundreds of billions of stars and planetary systems very similar to our own. Our planet is like a grain of sand at an endless beach. But still, despite the fact that it's so tiny, all of our species' history has taken place on this globe. All the kings, all the tyrants, the heroes, the families, the little children, the discoveries, the passions that were felt. All of those experiences have taken place here on this planet. And though our individual lives are finite, we are connected to our ancestors and their discoveries, their triumphs, their misfortunes. And we reach forward into the future towards our future progeny. And as long as our species is not destroyed, we truly live forever. Of the countless species that have swum in the earth's seas, flown in the sky, crawled across the plains, humanity is undoubtedly superior to them all. But that doesn't mean that we'll always be here. Hundreds of thousands of species have lived on this planet, sometimes for millions of years before their species disappears, often suddenly. All we're left with is their fossils, snapshots, shadows of what they were. Look at this fantastic fossilized dinosaur skull. Was it the inspiration for the space jockey in Prometheus? Truth is stranger than fiction. All of the thousands and thousands of fantastic species, humanity needs to understand that our existence is just as fragile. Scientists hotly debate whether it was a meteorite, a comet, or other outside threat that destroyed the dinosaurs. With humans, our main threat is ourselves. We've had the power to do it for more than 60 years. And every day we see different scientific installations having disasters. We are the equivalent of gods to Stone Age men. And we can't afford to make the mistakes they made because we will destroy ourselves with the technologies that we have developed. So far in our history, technology has been neutral. It is a promising tool that could allow us to grasp an infinite future. But at this time, the entire development of these systems is in the hands of the globalist, super predators who have a lustful disdain and hate for humanity. Globalist social engineers openly talk about the population of the planet like we're little animals in petri dishes to be manipulated, to be controlled, to be tested upon. Foster children and U.S. military personnel have had chemicals, biologicals, and radiologicals tested on them for more than 60 years because the elite believe that they're nothing but unconscious animals. I'm asking humanity to realize that a very small group of inbred, unhappy, twisted, and wicked people have seized control of human development and are attempting to establish a total control system of technocratic surveillance and dehumanization. It is now that we must begin to struggle against their bureaucracy, fighting their 1984 system with liberty and freedom and enlightenment and truth until the levers of technological development are leveraged from the hands of the globalist. Humanity has a very dark future. The real threats facing humanity are not the fake environmental threats that Al Gore and the UN bring you. They are unchecked cross-species genetic engineering. Tens of thousands of biotech companies, universities, and governments randomly splicing viruses, bacteria from plants and animals and then injecting them into other animals. This is already giving rise to mutated viruses and bacteria.